Um, Rachel Gefferie is a Black woman born and raised in Suriname, which is in South America. Dutch speaking with a Dutch nationality. And this stems from the history of my country, which is Suriname has been a colony from the Netherlands. So a lot of Suriname, well, the main language in Suriname is Dutch. And we still have opportunities to obtain for the Dutch nationality. I am living and working in the UK at the University of Kent. I am studying at the University of Kent, where I am in the finals of my PhD. So I'm writing up for social anthropology, and I am also working employed as a senior diversity mark officer at the student success team at Kent University. And then, of course, I am married. My husband, Charak Dorshan, who is in the police force here in Kent. And that's us. We've been living, working, studying in the UK now for almost 6 years. And before that, I was living in St. Martin, working in St. Martin together with my husband. So we have moved from Suriname to St. Martin, from St. Martin to the UK. That's me. My definite answer is I am from Suriname, because I see it as an opportunity to not only promote Suriname as a country that is the smallest in South America, but I see it also as an opportunity to reclaim my original identity, which is Surinamese. It's a response that I always receive when I mention Suriname. Usually people don't understand it correctly. They would say Sudan. So they immediately automatically think I am from a country that is somewhere in Africa. And when I say no, Suriname in South America, then they are also confused because I speak Dutch and they are not aware of Dutch speaking people in South America. They automatically associate South America with indigenous looking people who speak Spanish. So it's always a confusion, but for me, that's another opportunity to show the diversity that we have in South America, because there is definitely a huge diversity in South America. And we have Black people all over the place in South America, each with our own story that indirectly relates to Africa and more directly relates to the transatlantic, how do you see it, slavery, etc. So I am never offended by the response. I see it as a lack of knowledge that needs to be, shared with people. Definitely. That's why it was important for me to do this journey with Things That Talk, the platform, which is a project from the University of Leiden. I was happy to do this with them because this was my opportunity to showcase that embracing your identity does not need to be dependent on the color of your skin. It is much more valuable and richer if you can showcase your identity through, in my case, objects that have helped shape you to become the person you are. Because these are objects that they might relate to anyone else, and it's the best way to connect with anyone else in the world who is also used to receiving a knife, for instance, as a child, or someone who also has this face, for instance, that I have in my house, or someone who is embracing Christianity. It gives you a multitude of possibilities to relate to people rather than just using your blackness. So yeah, that's why I truly did this blog, and I hope that it will inspire others, especially young people, to know that their identity should never depend on just one thing. They should have the possibility to have a diverse approach on showcasing their identity, their personal identity, but also their cultural identity, their social identity, even economic identity. You know, that they should be able to embrace it in whatever way they want, as long as they feel close and confident with who they are. That's a good question. Surinamese for me means in the first place, um, being a descendant from enslaved Africans, and that's a recent addition to my identity based on what I am now embracing. So that's for me Surinamese. But Surinamese to me is also being indigenous, because Suriname, South America, very much is indigenous land. So I am rooted in my indigenous being. But being Surinamese for me also means coming from a place that has always embraced diversity, where race was not so much the case. The color of your skin has never been part of your identity, but what very much has been part of our identity in Suriname is being able to embrace each other. And even though you are Indian, Chinese, Japanese, even the whites, when you are proud to be Surinamese, then you are automatically Surinamese. And that's what being Surinamese means to me, being able to just embrace every element of my being that I have experienced in Suriname and showcasing that. So I never ever put my blackness at the forefront, because that is not how we identified ourselves in Suriname. We really identified with our multicultural society. The objects that I describe in my blog, these are objects that have been traveling with me. So none of them originate from the UK. The shells, for instance, originate from St. Martin, and each one of them represents basically a part of my identity, and my identity in the sense of where I come from and what I have become, right? So in Suriname, growing up, we are raised with objects amongst us in my family, so to speak. And the reason why objects are such an important part of our identity has to do with the fact that for my mom and dad, it was important to install in us strong sense of knowing who we are, where we come from, and just be confident with the person we are becoming. So, because my original place where I was born and raised, which is in Wageningen, which is a little village in Suriname, in the district of Nikeri, there is little access to further schooling. So we were raised with the mindset that after a while we will have to leave our original place of birth in pursuit of further education. And that's how my mom started to how do you say it? Um, collect objects to help us to take with us when we are ready to leave our little village. So I have a knife, for instance, that my dad carved it himself. He made it himself. And when the moment came, which was on my 15th birthday, he handed me that knife, because that was the moment that I was about to travel to the city right, to the capital of Suriname. My mom had a nice little blanket that she had embroidered for me. And this blanket was supposed to be the first blanket for my child once I was about to give birth to my first child. So these are objects that have stayed with me in my space wherever I was living when I traveled to, when I moved from our little village to the capital, and they have served as a reminder of where I'm from and who I am, who my family is. Definitely relate to religion because it's something that surrounded that was part of my environment when I grew up. My mom is a strong Christian woman. She strongly believes in you need to pray, you need to go to church, you need to be obedient. You know, my dad is a little bit more lenient, but still Christianity has been a huge part of our upbringing. And then so it become a second nature for me to lean on to Christianity whenever I had to make a huge decision in life. So when I moved to the capital, Christianity has also been sort of my do you say compass, sort of my
Yeah.
the way to lead me through life.
Mm.
But the interesting thing that happened is when I moved to St. Martin, Christianity still was a huge part of my life, but that's where I was also exposed to different sorts of religious beliefs, right? And the way how that could still support people's identity. So I was already shifting my interest in Christianity to my interest in other religious forms. And in this case, pure religious forms that stem from our African roots. So when I came to the UK, it was a huge awakening to realize that Christianity is a religion that is subject to a lot of criticism, a lot of ideas, uncertainties. And at the same time, I was also confronted with the fact that your identity is not so much based on religion as it is based on the color of your skin, which was my very first time to be confronted with a situation like that, that the color of my skin was the most important part of showing who I am. So I had to find another way to still stay grounded in who I am, and I opened up myself to explore other ways as in knowing who I am. So I took the route of looking at my blackness, which was difficult because in Suriname we do not call each other black. That's more of an insult when we say you're black, right? But I had to embrace it in order to survive in this new society here in the UK. But by embracing it, I was also exposed to a complete different world of looking at myself. And this was a world where I was invited basically to look at my origins as descendants of enslaved people, which in Suriname is not so much the case because in Suriname, our cultural awareness is very much entangled with our religious way of life. But here it was a complete separate situation. So what I did is, even though I still hold on my Christian upbringing, I also embrace um the experiences and the knowledge that comes from the history of enslavement, and I try to bring both of them together. And again, I am using objects to help me find stability and a balance in that, and it works. Suriname, and then specifically in Wageningen, where we grew up, nature was very much part of our life. My dad, even though we are with four sisters, only sisters, my dad insisted that we had to help him maintain the yard, which was large. It was a huge yard. So my dad never ever looked at us as being women. So we are not supposed to be working in the yard, cutting down trees and all of that. He insisted that we would do that. So I was used to fishing. I was used to cutting down trees, cleaning yards. I was used to planting, agriculture. It was just part of my daily life. In the holidays, during the school holidays, we would travel to the interior, which is an indigenous village in the back of behind our, shall I say behind? Yeah, next to our village, but you had to go by boat, right? So I was also used to that, going to indigenous villages where you don't have all the luxury, but it was also a commonality. Is it a commonality? No, it was also um, one of the things that my parents used to do is to send us on vacations to my dad's village, which was on the other side of our village, but was also very much a simple, basic lifestyle where we had to cook on wood, again, fishing, catching crabs in the mud. So I've always been surrounded by nature. And I think that's also why in St. Martin it was so important for me to feel that connection again. That's why I would go to the beach. And here, when I moved to the UK, I was so happy to locate in the Kent area where you are surrounded by nature.